The laughter began before Mara Ellison even reached her seat. She heard it the moment she stepped through the sliding doors of Lecture Hall 7 aboard the Galactic Union Academy station, a ring of silver and glass suspended above the gas giant Thurvan, where 52 alien cadets from 31 different worlds sat waiting for Commander Cale Veron's advanced xenophysics class to begin. Someone had already pulled up her homeworld profile on the shared holodisplay. Earth, Sol System, Threat Classification, Deathworld Tier 4. Gravity, 9.8 meters per square second, Surface Standard. Atmospheric pressure, 101.3 kilopascals. Average temperature range, minus 89 degrees Celsius to 58 degrees Celsius. Notable hazards, tectonic instability, extreme weather events, apex predator biodiversity, microbiological warfare ecology. 9.8, said a Vrelian cadet named Toss, his 4 translucent eyes blinking with amusement. Vrela had a surface gravity of 2.1 meters per square second. To him, Earth was barely a step above 0 g, that is less than my homeworld's moon. And they call this a death world? Another round of laughter rippled through the room. A pair of Karathi cadets, bipedal, heavily built, from a 14 meters per square second world, exchanged glances and said nothing, but their silence carried its own flavor of dismissal. Mara set her pack down at an empty desk near the middle row. She had heard variations of this conversation 17 times in the past 3 weeks. She had stopped counting after the second. She pulled out her datapad, opened her notes from the previous lecture, and began reviewing them. Ellison. Toss leaned across the aisle, his voice pitched to Carrie. Does it hurt when you walk? I heard Earth humans struggle in anything above 3 gravities. I heard they need mechanical assistance just to function on mid-tier colony worlds, another cadet added, a Saliki named Farv, copper-skinned, from a world with crushing atmospheric pressure and triple Earth's pull. A death world classification that cannot even manage standard training gravity. Remarkable. Mara highlighted a passage in her notes about inertial dampening coefficients. She did not look up. This was, she had learned, the thing that bothered them most. Not her size, she was average height for a human, unremarkable by any species standard. Not her appearance. What bothered them was that she did not react. She did not flush or argue or shrink. She simply continued existing, with complete and total disinterest in their opinions. Farv tried again. I am told humans invented a sport where you fall from aircraft without mechanical propulsion and call it recreation. Skydiving, Mara confirmed, still reading. Though the older version, base jumping, is better. Smaller margins. That is not recreation. That is a failure of threat assessment. Sure. She turned a page. The door opened. Commander Cale Veron entered. He was Salvari, tall pale blue, with the calm, unhurried movement of a species that had achieved spaceflight 11,000 years before Earth figured out iron smelting. He had been teaching xenophysics at the Academy for longer than most species in the room had possessed written language. He noticed the holodisplay still showing Mara's homeworld profile. His eyes moved to her. She was reading. He said nothing about it, set his materials on the podium, and began. Today, Commander Veron said, we examine load-bearing thresholds under variable gravity conditions. Practical application, adaptation stress on biological systems during transit between planetary environments. He tapped the display and the Earth profile was replaced with rotating diagrams. We begin with a question. What is the primary failure point for organic biology when transitioning from low-gravity to high-gravity environments? Hands went up. Veron called on Toss. Cardiovascular system, Toss said. The heart is not conditioned to pump against increased gravitational resistance. Blood pools in the lower extremities. Cognitive function degrades first. Correct. Partial credit. Veron moved to the next diagram. The cardiovascular system is the first system to show stress indicators. It is not, however, the primary failure point. Anyone else? A karate cadet answered, skeletal muscular load. Bones and connective tissue compress under high gravity stress if the organism has not developed sufficient density. Better. Now. Veyron turned to face the room fully. We often use gravity as a shorthand metric for planetary danger, which is why the display some of you were enjoying before class shows Earth's 9.8 meters per square second as though it were amusing. He let that sit for a moment. Several cadets shifted. I want to run an exercise. Ellison. Mara looked up. Come to the front, please. She came. No hesitation. No performance of reluctance or eagerness. She stood beside the podium with her hands loose at her sides, and 52 alien cadets looked at her the way you look at something you have already decided is unimportant. Tell me, Veyron said, your personal high-gravity training record. In a controlled sim environment. 4.3 standard G, Mara said. Sustained for 11 minutes. Combat mobility drills, not static endurance. The room went quiet in a different way than before. TOS Homeworld was 2.1. His personal record in the Academy gravity simulators was 3.0 G for 6 minutes, and he had been proud of it. The karate cadets, born on 14 meters per square second, exchanged that glance again. This time it meant something else. Explain the mechanism, Veyron said. Not the number. Why can you do that? Mara considered for a moment. Earth gravity isn't high, she said. You're right about that. But it isn't low either, not in the way that matters. It's variable stress. Earth's environment doesn't stay constant. You've got mountains at altitude and trenches at pressure. You've got weather systems that can shift atmospheric load in hours. You've got tectonic events, biological threats that respond and adapt, temperature ranges that swing 90 degrees between seasons. She paused. Earth doesn't hit hard in one direction. It hits from every direction, all the time, inconsistently. So the organisms that survive it don't build for one kind of resistance. They build adaptive response systems. Veyron nodded slowly. Continue. My cardiovascular system doesn't just pump against gravity. It's been calibrated over my entire life and over hundreds of generations before me to respond. When load increases, it doesn't fail. It upregulates. My skeletal density is above average for human standard because I trained at altitude for 4 years. My connective tissue has a higher tensile range because Earth's unpredictability selects for flexibility, not rigidity. She glanced at the karate cadets without hostility. High-gravity worlds produce strong, dense organisms. Earth produced organisms that change under pressure. The silence in the room had a texture to it now. The Deathworld classification, Veyron said, turning to address the full hall, is not about gravity. It is not about raw environmental hostility as a single measurable vector. It is about systemic, unpredictable, multi-axis threat load. Earth scores Tier 4 not because any single factor is lethal, but because the combination produces biological systems that cannot be easily modeled. He looked at TOS. Your homeworld is higher gravity. It is also geologically stable, climatically uniform, and microbiologically sparse. You are strong. You are consistent. You are predictable in your responses. He looked at Mara. Earth organisms are not predictable. That is, in xenobiological terms, significantly more dangerous. Mara walked back to her seat. She sat down. Opened her datapad. Went back to her notes. Favre, in the row beside her, was quiet for a long moment. Then, carefully, without the previous edge in his voice, the skydiving. The falling from aircraft. Is it actually recreational, or is that a socialization ritual for threat desensitization? Mara thought about it genuinely. Both, probably, she said. We don't really separate those things out. Favre nodded slowly. He wrote something in his own notes. Whatever it was, he angled the pad so she could not see it. But his posture had shifted, the small, careful shift of a creature that has quietly updated its assessment of something it thought it understood. Toss said nothing for the rest of the lecture. At the end of class, as cadets filed out, Commander Veron paused beside Mara's desk. He did not make a production of it. "You handled that well," he said quietly. "I didn't do anything," Mara said. "Precisely," said Veron. And walked out. Mara packed her datapad. Around her, the lecture hall emptied. Through the viewport behind the podium, the gas giant Thurvan churned in bands of amber and rust, beautiful, enormous, indifferent. She had 3 more classes today, a gravity sim session at 1800 hours, and a xenobiology exam Friday she hadn't finished studying for. She slung her pack over one shoulder and walked out into the corridor. Somewhere behind her, she heard Farv quietly asking a Karathi cadet what they knew about Earth's tectonic history. She didn't slow down. She had work to do. Some worlds breed warriors. Earth bred something harder to kill, something that didn't know it was supposed to stop.